Okay, so you've sent over some really interesting sources about this idea of brain rot, internet culture, and how it bumps up against high intelligence. It feels like a paradox, almost.
It really does. We're kind of diving into whether being constantly online is changing how we think, and if, being smart offers any kind of protection.
Or makes it worse,
Or
maybe.
maybe makes it worse, yeah. That's the fascinating question.
So let's unpack brain rot. From the materials, it sounds like the internet's term for feeling mentally foggy after scrolling through too much.
Well, fluff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like trivial online content, viral videos, memes, that endless feed.
Right. And it's kind of amazing that Oxford University Press actually named it Word of the Year for 2024. That says a lot.
It really does. It shows how much this idea has sort of seeped into the mainstream conversation. It's this self-aware thing, often kind of humorous, like admitting your brain's gone a bit soft.
But it's not entirely new, is it? The term's been around a while. Yeah, that's right. Since the 2000s, apparently. Back then, it was maybe aimed more at things like reality TV or just that general feeling of being online too much.
That feeling that consuming loads of, like, low-value stuff might be bad for your brain somehow.
Precisely. That sense of mental deterioration from mindless content.
And you mentioned that skibidi dop dop yes yes video.
Yeah.
Just 11 seconds, but millions and millions of views.
Yeah, that became a sort of poster child for the kind of content people point to as, brain rot. Makes you wonder.
But the way people use the term now, it's often ironic, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's a huge layer of self-awareness. Online communities use it playfully, almost like a knowing wink.
Like calling out something absurd or silly.
Exactly. Know Your Meme called it a humorous way to criticize trivial stuff, blaming it for, like, a mental decline from being online. It's like saying, this is dumb. I know it's dumb, but here I am watching it.
It's almost like people wear it as a badge of honor sometimes, isn't it? Joking they have brain rot after too much TikTok.
Yeah, or when they can't shake some silly meme song.
And then you get brain rot memes, which are designed to be nonsensical.
Right. Or people captioning things actual brain rot. It's self-deprecating humor about enjoying something utterly pointless.
Which leads us to being chronically online. The sources link these two ideas pretty closely.
They really do. Being chronically online means you're just soaked in internet culture, right? Your humor, your references, it all comes from there.
So if you joke about being brain rotted, you're kind of admitting you've had maybe too much exposure to the weird, low-quality side of the internet.
Pretty much. Like a funny confession that your brain's a bit scrambled from all the digital noise.
And it gets weirder, this trend of young people acting brain rot, like performing silliness.
Yeah, as a joke. Or maybe to fit in. The sources mention high schoolers using it almost affectionately when someone says something goofy.
Bonding over the most mindless videos they can find.
But that raises a flag, doesn't it? For educators, anyway. Is this normalizing a kind of anti-intellectual attitude?
Right. If it starts as a joke, could it accidentally lead to genuinely undervaluing serious thought? What happens if every serious comment just gets a meme reply?
That's the concern. And it ties into irony poisoning,
Yeah. The idea that being constantly ironic online makes it hard to just be sincere.
Exactly. In some online corners, earnestness is almost taboo. You have to keep it ironic.
And the worry is that this diet of memes could, like, erode our ability to actually discuss serious things properly.
It could. Even smart people might just default to slang and memes instead of, straightforward discussion.
It's like the chronically online intellectual using humor as a shield. Maybe even a coping mechanism for all the online noise.
Perhaps, but maybe losing something in direct communication along the way. And you see it, right? Even in supposedly intellectual online groups, it's all memes, slang, GIFs.
It's shared language, I guess.
It is, but it can be a barrier, too, if you're not fluent in the latest meme. Does it dilute the actual conversation?
Good point. One article mentioned cultural memory loss. If everything's based on fleeting trends, what happens to sustained thought?
And the irony is huge, isn't it? The people who are best at navigating the internet, who know every meme,
Are the same ones joking about having fried attention spans.
exactly. They're lamenting this perceived mental decline that they feel comes from being so online.
So beneath the jokes, there's a real worry about information overload.
Definitely. This constant bombardment, is it messing with our ability to concentrate, remember things, think critically?
And the neuroscience you brought up is Well, it's pretty sobering.
It is. There's this growing evidence suggesting heavy internet use might be linked to actual structural changes in the brain.
Changes where?
Studies from Harvard, Oxford, King's College, they found correlations between lots of online multitasking and potentially less gray matter in the prefrontal cortex.
Which is like the brain's CEO, right?
Right.
For focused planning.
Exactly. Gray matter is key there, so less of it. That could mean something significant for our executive functions.
Which fits with people saying they can't focus anymore. That constant switching between apps.
Yeah.
Maybe it's literally changing how our attention works.
The research seems to point that way. Heavy media multitaskers often do worse on attention and memory tests.
Like that Stanford study you included finding lower working memory capacity and attention spans in people using lots of platforms frequently. That's quite specific.
It is. And then you get terms like digital dementia. A bit strong, maybe.
A bit provocative, yeah.
But it's used to describe this perceived cognitive dip in younger people who grew up online. Things like forgetfulness, mental fatigue.
And the stats on attention spans dropping from minutes to seconds.
Wow.
It's startling. And the design of platforms, like the infinite scroll.
Oh yeah, that's built to hook you.
It really is. It hijacks the brain's reward system, making it hard to stop scrolling, even when you want to. That little dopamine hit keeps you going.
But, okay, we need the counter-arguments too. The sources weren't all doom and gloom. No, absolutely not. Experts like Dr. Poppy Watson make a crucial point. A lot of this is correlation, not proven causation.
Right. We see a link, but we can't definitively say the internet causes the cognitive issues. Other factors could be involved.
Exactly. And then there's the Flynn effect, the fact that average IQ scores have generally been rising over decades, even with the internet.
So it's not simply internet makes you dumber.
It seems more complex. Maybe we're gaining some cognitive skills, like processing visual information quickly, but losing others, like sustained focus. A trade-off, perhaps.
That makes sense. It's less about raw intelligence and more about mental habits, maybe. The kind of thinking we do.
I think that's a good way to put it, because even if IQ isn't dropping, people report struggling with concentration, with deep thinking, that feeling of being brain-rotted.
And that ties into procrastinating with short videos, right? It's just easier than reading a book or tackling a hard problem.
It absolutely is. The path of least mental resistance. It's a very modern version of an old problem.
And the historical parallels were interesting, too. Thoreau worrying about superficial thinking in the 1800s.
Right, and Simmel's blasé attitude in the early 1900s as a response to city overload.
So feeling overwhelmed isn't new, it's just the source of the overload that's changed.
Yeah.
Now it's digital.
Precisely. Which brings us back to the intelligence question. Does being smart protect you?
What did the sources suggest? It seems like.
Yeah.
Maybe not entirely.
Yeah, the picture is definitely nuanced. High intelligence might give you better tools, critical thinking, self-awareness, regulation.
But you're still swimming in the same overwhelming digital ocean as everyone else.
Exactly. You're not immune to the distractions, the sheer volume.
And that hypothesis about highly intelligent people may be feeling overstimulated more acutely. That was interesting.
Right. Because they process things deeply, maybe the constant, often trivial input becomes overwhelming faster.
Leading to quicker mental burnout and needing more quiet time.
It's a plausible idea. A sensitive system might get overloaded more easily by the noise.
And the addictive design of these platforms that doesn't care about your IQ, does it?
Not at all. Anyone can get caught in that scroll loop. And we see it even in smart circles. Post-irony brain rot, the chronically online smart person whose focus phrase.
It's like the smarter you are, the more painfully aware you might be that your focus is slipping because of these habits.
That could certainly be part of it. And then there's the cultural angle.
Ah, right. The idea that online youth culture might sometimes downplay intelligence.
Yeah, if being overtly smart isn't seen as cool, maybe bright kids feel pressure to act brain rot to fit in.
So they might kind of self-censor their own abilities in certain contexts.
It's possible. Not losing the ability, but maybe not exercising it as much in those online social spaces. A sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, almost.
So pulling it all together, brain rot starts as this internet joke, but it taps into real anxieties about what consuming tons of low-quality online stuff is doing to us.
And high intelligence isn't a magic shield. It might help you recognize it, maybe manage it better.
But everyone's vulnerable to the sheer pervasiveness of digital distraction and these addictive designs.
Absolutely. The takeaway seems to be about balance, really, being intentional about how we consume media, whatever our IQ.
We need to consciously protect our ability to concentrate, to reflect, to think deeply.
It requires actively carving out space for things that are more mentally nourishing.
Okay, so here's the final thought to leave people with. In this world just drowning in easy, bite-sized content, how do we purposefully choose mental nourishment? How do we protect that capacity for deep, meaningful engagement, regardless of how smart we are?
That's definitely something worth thinking about long after this conversation ends.